It's funny. I just, on the Notion, I have like the notes and stuff for all the different podcasts. And I've just got here, go through his LinkedIn.
Oh, no.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Chip Lunch Podcast. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening.
And good night.
Good night. Whatever time you're listening to this or watching this, welcome. Hello,
Subtle
hi, how are you?
Truman Show reference.
Yeah. I was trying to think of like, welcome to Happy Twilight.
Ooh.
Like just all those different types of day. Happy Dawn.
Dawn.
And Dusk.
The dawn of a new day.
The dawn of a new podcast episode. How are you, Brendan?
Good. How are you?
Great. It's very rainy today.
It is very rainy today, which I'm glad we're not in the factory. I actually thought that when I woke up this morning. I was like, I'm glad we're doing a podcast here at Miranda because we would be having the light serenade of the pitter-patter on a tin roof. Sometimes
it's a bit heavier than the light serenade.
Yes.
Just you can't hear it.
I remember there was a couple of podcasts back, I think it was James Rostarola's podcast is upstairs at the factory for that reason because it was pouring rain and we couldn't record a podcast.
Sounds like there's this really bad audio at the top of the podcast.
But we were purposely upstairs because it was better up there than in a big concrete box.
And with a tin roof on top of it. It's time to welcome our guest, Craig. Welcome to the podcast.
G'day.
From MCC, of course.
How are you doing?
I'm feeling really
Soul
good.
Revival.
Sorry, Soul Revival MCC.
Soul Revival
That's what I meant.
at Miranda Congregational Church.
Thank you for correcting me giving me the correct term. That's great. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for making the time to come on. It's going to be fun. We've already had Rob from MCC on almost a month ago or more, I think.
Yeah.
But since then, things have changed in terms of our relationship as churches. You've set now Soul Revival, which is amazing. So I'm sure we'll get into that at some point. I did have a question though, because it's raining. Do you have a favourite song that talks about rain?
Ooh. Well, goodness me. I mean, it's been raining men. No.
So it's raining men. Who is that? That's
I don't know. It sounds like a Supremes or someone like that.
Something like
that. No. It was re-recorded, was it?
Probably.
By Ginger Spice, maybe?
Wow.
Jerry Halliwell. That's who it is.
I don't know. I was thinking Purple Rain was the first one that popped into my head.
Oh, because of the Super Bowl performance
yes,
by Prince.
Actually.
Have you ever seen that, Craig?
No.
So there's a Super Bowl I think it was in Tampa.
Yeah, I don't remember which one it was. I just remember that, the video is insane.
It's like a monsoon. Like it's like almost like, I think there was a hurricane nearby and the rain is intense. At the halftime show, like Prince and the girls that are dancing with him deliver this amazing performance in the pouring rain.
And the girls are wearing like crazy high heels and it's like bucketing down rain. He's ripping through Purple Rain guitar solo.
Yep.
Highly recommend. And there's I think there's like a YouTube video of the NFL films behind the scenes.
Yeah.
It's like 10 minutes. That's worth watching.
We'll link that in the show notes.
Yeah.
Shout out Prince.
I was thinking of When the Levee Breaks by Led Zeppelin.
Ooh.
Which
Less direct.
Yeah, well, he talks about rain.
Or Have You Ever Seen the Rain by Creedence Clearwater?
I want to know.
We're all going old school here.
Yeah, that's good. It's funny that there's a lot of...
Umbrella by Rihanna, if we're going newer.
Oh.
Newer.
Well, see, I think of that, but then the film clip only has her with an umbrella and sparks.
I wouldn't know the film clip.
The music,
unfortunately.
we got a music video.
Music video.
Yeah.
And of course, Dragon, It's Been Raining.
That's
been raining.
That's a classic.
For so long. Good singing, Joel. Well done.
Yes.
Let's
Welcome to our karaoke podcast.
Oh, how good would that be?
Good is not the word I would use.
Well, good in a different sense. It could be amazing. What's your karaoke song then?
I've never done karaoke.
I don't know if I have either.
I think if I was going to do karaoke, it would... Oh, that's actually a really good question. Maybe we add that to the questions. Do you have a karaoke
Oh,
song?
well, then it's got to be I Believe in a Thing Called Love by the Darkness.
Yes!
That is actually a great...
How good is that?
Only because I can get my falsetto on.
Yeah.
Can you?
Well, I was going to say Don't Stop Me Now by Queen.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think I would sing it very well, but it gets the people going.
Yeah.
To quote Will Ferrell in... it Blades of Glory.
It's provocative.
It gets the people going. Like, I feel like if you need something to get people bopping. Like Journey, Don't Stop Believing by Journey.
Yep.
Stop.
Like anything that's pumping like that.
I love that you mentioned The Darkness, one of my favourite bands
There you go.
of all time.
Yeah. It was on SingStar, is that what it was? On
On the
one of
PlayStation.
those, yeah, it was. Yep. That's very cool.
What's your karaoke song, Joel?
Oh, I think Craig might have stolen it. I believe in a thing called love.
Yeah.
Because you know that the story with the darkness is that so Justin Hawkins is the singer, Dan Hawkins saw him singing Bohemian Rhapsody karaoke and said he's the singer of our band. And that's when he's like, oh, we definitely need to have Justin as the singer in the band.
I remember my last night at youth group at Rev back at Gomer Anglican, because my year was very musical, we played that song.
Did you?
Yeah, we played. That was one of the songs we played.
Wow.
Because I'd gone up if that
Yeah,
was
yeah.
that's sad.
I remember playing the guitar solo to that song. It
Oh,
was very fun.
bro.
Yeah.
That is amazing. Because the year that we left Rev, we had a massive night in the church and played, it's a Lenny Kravitz song. What is it?
Are you going to go my way or?
No, not Getaway. That's another one.
What's the other Lenny Kravitz song?
And then we went into Whole Lot of Love by Led Zeppelin and like
Fly Away?
Yeah. No, that's I want to get American Woman. That's it.
Oh. I was thinking, who's the original?
Most played song on
Singers
Triple M, apparently.
American Woman.
really?
Yeah. Really?
The original version? Who's the American?
American Woman.
Kravitz version. Yeah.
Okay. I'm trying to think of who it's
I
actually
thought there was an original version. Wasn't
Yeah, it's by the Guess Who. Yeah.
it? The Guess Who?
It's like a 60s song.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. I apologize.
There's an excellent guitar solo in both versions.
Yeah.
Of those songs.
So there was
Anyway,
like Jared Spring was up on the communion table
I remember that. I was there.
soloing. Yeah, well, you were there. Yeah. We were throwing water everywhere.
Yep.
And stuff. Anyway, let's get into the.
Anyway,
let's get into the
that
podcast.
little sideline music podcast.
Oh, how good was that? Anyway, Craig, welcome. As I said, how do you like to eat your hot chips?
It's great weather for hot chips.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is good, but I'm going to give you the answer of it's going to be the most corporate answer you've heard. But you know those red boxes with the golden arches on it?
Ah, yes.
Those
McDonald's
ones, but
fries.
they've got to be really hot.
Yeah.
And again, you can oversalt them, you can undersalt them. It's just got to sit somewhere in the middle.
It's
Yeah.
well salted.
Well
Properly
salted, but not oversalted. So
Yeah.
that's my answer. Although I have heard people talking about the char grill chicky chips from
Yeah,
across
just
the road.
over here, yeah.
they're similar.
So they haven't been there, you know, I mean, in the scheme of things, they've probably been there for, 5-10 years or so.
Yeah.
But, before that, there was another little shop a couple of doors down. And again, I've got fond memories of sort of doing youth here and popping across the road for chips before church. And we'd get them at that shop instead of the chicken shop up on the corner.
Yeah.
And they were pretty good as well. But we did also have, at the same time, they used to sell Lifesavers on the counter, and we'd buy those. And there was a flavour that you'd never see anywhere called black currant pastilles. They were, and and again we'd buy them at the same time. So they're my memories of sort of Miranda Cong hot chips.
Oh, it's very similar to Laura Lee, how she went across the road to get chips after church. Very nice. Did you have any sauce with your McDonald's chips?
Oh, absolutely not. No, no. I'm so no sauce. My wife, she loves a bit of tomato sauce with her hot chips.
Bit of the Heinz ketchup.
Yeah. But for me, no, it's just
Purist.
plain and salted. So corporate, plain and salted.
At least it's real salt. At least
Yeah,
it's normal
that's-
salt at least.
Well,
Is it?
Well, is it? I
I
don't
don't
know.
know. Who knows what Macca's are doing?
It's probably mined from somewhere in Kosovo or something like that and shipped out.
Well, the other question. Oh yeah, I used to, when I did eat McDonald's, sweet and sour sauce with the fries was pretty good too. I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes I used to get the cheeseburger and dip it in the sweet and sour sauce too.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ever done
Yeah.
that before?
No.
When do you live on the edge for
You're a
once, Brady?
sicko. You're a sicko.
Cool. Part B that I always like to ask sometimes is any special memory about eating hot chips? Was it that one, like you said, going across the road getting chips for church?
Yeah, I think it was. I mean, hot chips bring people together, don't they?
Yes.
I mean, I think that's the corporate hot chips. I mean, the corporate hot chips are always available.
Yeah.
Whenever you need hot
Yes.
chips, you can just go on a drive-through these days. You can probably Uber Eats them, but they don't come out really hot.
No,
Absolutely
they're
not.
pretty
Salted very well. So
terrible.
I'm not a big fan of the
Yeah.
home delivered hot chips. But yeah, hot chips are always available.
Yes.
But the memories will be, the shop across the road. There'll be, a family gathering or something where someone comes out at the park with some hot chips and,
Yep.
you know, again, something in our family that's done is a loaf of white bread
Yes.
with some hot chips.
Yes.
These days that's sort of frowned upon because it's carb loading, but that's just something. They're the memories I've got of hot chips, I guess.
Well, I do remember some hot chip sandwiches.
Yeah.
They were pretty good.
Yeah. And again, typically the tomato sauce comes out as well on those things. So
Yeah, definitely.
and sometimes butter.
Yeah.
Butter on the bread. So
on the bread. Okay.
butter on the bread, then chips, then sauce, and I'm just going, well, okay, that sounds pretty healthy to me.
Yeah, well, it's classic English diet, isn't it?
And it would melt.
Beige on beige.
But the hot chips would melt the butter, right?
Yeah.
So that's that makes sense. Because I was thinking if you just had it like butter on a bread, like on a sandwich, I don't think that would go that well. But if it melts the butter,
Well, yeah, it's chip buddy in England.
Yeah.
You know, as an aside, I made myself a killer roast beef sandwich on Easter Sunday morning. Was it Easter Sunday morning? No, Monday. No, it was Monday because we went over to my wife's parents and they had some leftover roast beef. It was actually my daughter's. She didn't finish it all. And then I heated it up in some butter, fried the bread in the pan, so put that on, and then I mixed a beetroot sauerkraut with mayonnaise. So I just mixed that in a bowl and put that on top with cheese. Oh, it was pretty good.
That's MasterChef stuff. That is. That's
It's just sometimes this creative thing it hits me when I'm cooking food, but it usually is like random things that come in. Like, how could I make that? But I don't think I'm a chef. I'm not a food guy too much. I do like good food, like anyone. But anyway, enough about me. John, annoying aside. Let's ask the real reason we do this podcast is, Craig, how did you become a Christian?
Well, yeah, I'd like to, again, listening to a few of these episodes, again, there's a mix of people that have had some great stories. And, well, I think everyone's got a great story, right? So it doesn't matter if it's going to be plain like mine or it's been exciting, lightning bolts coming from above. Not that I've heard any of those either. But again, I'm one of those kids that's grown up in the church. So again, this building has been part of my life for a good part of the last 30 years. Right. I know I only look 30. That's good, but good part of those years have been spent here. And again, if you wanted to sort of assume that I've been part of this this group all of my life as well. So this group of believers that sort of comes and meets in this building. Yeah. So the question of when I found faith or when I believe that I made that commitment, I think it was sometime in primary school. Yeah. Again, there's a lot of people that have sort of played a part in my life, I would say. A lot of them have been in this group of believers as well. But I'm sure it was sort of after sort of a kids' camp or something like that, really felt convicted at that point that I needed Jesus and he'd called me. So yeah, that's when I think it happened. So I can't put a time or date on it, but it was about then.
And a lot of people that have come on the podcast say that like a camp, like that has been something really formative in the way like, I need to take my faith seriously. Can you remember what happened at the camp that made you think that, or God spoke to you in that way?
Again, I can't remember who the speaker was. I can't even remember what they were speaking on. So for all those preachers out there that spend a lot of time putting sermons together, especially for camps, again, I apologise because I'm one of those kids that's forgotten that from, again, 30 plus years ago. What I do remember, though, is the leaders. So I remember the leaders that were there. I remember the modelling that they did in their lives, both good and bad, but I think that was probably the thing that convinced me that this was pretty cool, and that Jesus had an impact on their lives as well. Yeah.
Do you remember even where it was?
So it would have been at our the FCC's campsite up at Hazelbrook called Camp Fletcher. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Where's Hazelbrook? Sorry.
So it's in the Blue Mountains.
Okay.
It's probably hour and a half out of Sydney, up in the Blue Mountains, and it's got some beautiful waterfalls. It's right in the middle of the bush. Again, in my formative years, there's some really memorable times up there as well.
Yeah, excellent. Right, and so that was you were in primary school, is that right? Where did you go to school in the Shire?
Yeah, look, again, Shire boy all my life, but started off at Laguna Street Public School, if you know where that is in Caringbah. Yeah. Did that for all my primary schooling, and then I was pretty bright in year 6. So I sat the selective school test and I got into Caringbah.
Yeah.
Now, there is some people a little bit sceptical about that would say, well, you're only the second year of selective high school at Caringbah, but, I still think it was, pretty cool that we got in there. But, I progressively made sure that I didn't live up to those standards for my entire high school career and, finished where I think I should have,
What was your forte subject? What did you like doing the most?
Oh, certainly the business studies, legal studies subjects, and please don't ask me to do any maths or science. That's not my thing.
Yeah, we do have a.
Oh, thanks.
We do have a maths problem.
Mandatory maths problem.
Yeah. X equals minus b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac over 2a. That's the quadratic formula in case anyone needs to know.
Oh,
and the only reason I remember that is because it goes along with a song. So.
Oh, does it?
Yeah. Anyway,
back to our karaoke podcast.
Yeah, that's it.
So, in between those years of kind of primary school, high school, do you have any moments in your life that stood out where you thought, yeah, I am a Christian? Like a decision that you decided to make, like you chose to make, you're like, no, I'm not doing this, or I am doing this because, yeah, I'm a Christian.
Yeah, and here's a really, really strange answer, but it'll come to Schoolies Week. Okay. So Schoolies Week, back in the 1990s, it was getting big up on the Gold Coast. So prior to making decisions about that, all my schoolmates were going to the Gold Coast, but there was a bunch of us that decided, we don't really want to go and do that. We'll go to Great Keppel Island. So we thought, we'll go there. Unfortunately, at about the sort of August of that year, for some reason, the resort went bust and we couldn't go there. And so, what do we do? And so that group sort of scattered. So a few people went one place, but I ended up going to Schoolies on the Gold Coast in Surfers Paradise. So I still don't know to this day why Mum and Dad said, yeah, that's a good idea. Again, we were sort of a church family and stuff like that. But I think, Dad would tell you that he trusted me. And so ended up booking my tickets up. We went to the Gold Coast. Back in the days, there was no mobile phones either. So I think I made one phone call when I arrived. I'm here, from a public phone, and that was it. That's the last they heard from me for 2 weeks. Yeah, okay. And I was off the leash. Yeah. I was 18. I had a credit card. I remember that as well. But in that time, I wouldn't have touched any drink, no sex, no drugs, no nothing. We used to hang out at night. There was a sort of a pool hall that a bunch of us just hung out with. And we weren't Christians as such, as in the group that I was with. We were schoolmates. We weren't sort of the Christian church mates. Yeah. But I think that was a point in time that I'd made that decision. Yeah, I'm not going to go do all of that stuff that's happening there. That looks exciting, but I'm not going to go and do that. All that being said, during that Schoolies Week, I know I was buying them grog with my credit card because I was 18. So I know I was doing things like that. I assume that's not illegal. I assume I could say that on podcasts.
No, I don't care.
Yeah.
So you're going to get arrested.
Yeah, that's it. I'm going to get arrested. 35 years ago, surely it's statute of limitations.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. But yeah, so that's probably a time that I do remember. I've got to do what I'm called to do under Christ in that time. So I do remember doing that. Yeah.
You briefly mentioned family. Like, what did family look like for you growing up?
Yeah. Well, again, I counted it back this morning just in case the question was asked. But I'm in my family. My kids are the 4th generation at MCC. I didn't quite realise that. They could even be longer, and I'm sure someone at MCC will correct me on that on the kids' side. But on the Pring side, my mum came here as a kid. Yeah. So her mother brought her, and then they raised us in this church here as well. So mum and dad still attend MCC, and I was here with my sister, so just the two of us. My sister's now living in the US, awesome. But here I am. Yeah. Again, I married my childhood sweetheart in Kayleen, and we met at youth here, and awesome. And we've continued to raise our kids here. So
Wow. And so, like things like schoolies, and even growing up in high school, what's it like growing up for you as Christian in high school? Because as an example, I became a Christian, I think, when I was 16, but I didn't really take it. I don't think I really took it seriously until the last year of high school. What was it like for you? Because you said you became a Christian pretty early on in the childhood growing up phase. So what was it like in high school? Did you feel like you stood out? Did you cop it for being a Christian?
Yeah, I don't remember that.
Well, that's good.
Yes, I don't remember that was the case. Possibly the negative side of it is there was probably two lives. There was the weekend life that happened with my church mates, and then there was the school life that happened with schoolmates. They did used to cross over though at Cronulla Sharks games. So they just started doing Saturday night games together. So again, we'd get together and everyone would be sort of down at Shark Park together, and we'd do that. So I do remember that being something, but I wouldn't say that there was a time that all my schoolmates came to church with me, or all my church mates sort of came to schoolies week, for instance.
Yeah, I think it was similar for me that as I got older in high school, I almost had like two lives of like I go to it was Soldies, that's what we called it back in the day, and when we were at Gaimee, and then at school reasonably foul-mouthed and that's the only thing I got in trouble at school for was swearing and talking, which now I'm hosting a podcast.
Yeah,
so that explains a lot. Do you feel like, do you look back at that time and go, I should have stood up as a Christian more?
Yeah.
The reason I'm asking that question is because I feel like I should have.
Yeah, I agree, and I'd say that for every day of my life since high school as well. I think there's always a conversation that could have been had. There's always a word that could be had. So yeah, I think I can always do better at that stuff. But yeah, again, something continuing to renew myself in and continuing to grow in.
What do you think the barrier for you is in terms of sharing your faith with other people when you say that?
I like people. I like what they think of me, and I think that's probably the barrier. So I don't want to offend you with if I talk about a football team that's not your football team, I don't want to offend you. So I think in society today, obviously having an overt faith is pretty difficult. I think
Can be offensive.
However, I do think the world is slightly changing as well because, and again, I'll just use a quick example from the last couple of weeks at work. There's been lots of celebrations of Pride Week and Ramadan and things like that. And I haven't seen a lot of celebrations of Easter. We've just gone through Easter. And so I've sent a quick note into them just to say, oh, look, be good if we can continue to celebrate some of our, other sort of holidays that we've traditionally supported and things like that. But I do think there's opportunities for Christians now to be able to speak up in this, world of diversity, world of equality. I still think there's an opportunity for us to have a voice and speak about the things that we do.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree with that. So then we kind of talked about it at school, going to Sharks games.
Yeah. What did church like? Could you just? Oh, sorry.
It's all right. No, the same way, for once.
Give us a picture of what church looked like at that time. Honestly, I'm guessing it was a Sunday. What did a Sunday look like for you at that point?
Yeah, Sundays, and again, I can probably my memory probably goes back to about 14, 15 onwards. So let's call it high school years. And again, can we get some of those chimes in the background sort of as I reminisce?
Yeah.
Oh, the harp.
Yeah, the harp, that'll do, yeah. So this building that we sat in, as I say, there's a lot of fond memories as I sit here and talk to you about it. But we'd moved from up on the Westfield corner down here. So this was all pretty brand spanking new.
What year did you move?
That would have been 1991.
Okay.
But the story about, just before we go to the story about that is that Westfield wanted to expand. That's right. That it expanded across, this is Kiora Road, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
And they bought the land, and correct me if I'm wrong, the agreement was that Westfield basically builds the church somewhere else and it's full turnkey, like they built the whole thing. Is that correct?
Yeah, effectively, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's it. So again, again, praise God for the leaders that were here at the time, but made some awesome decisions about getting this block. And I'm sure at this point in time, this block was a long way away from the centre of Miranda. And so there would have been, a number of opinions about whether this was too far away. But as I say, it's a great, been a great property for witnessing to the Miranda community, I think. We moved down the road. Again, I think the age I must have been was 13, 14. And so things like, Sunday night church was on. So Sunday night church was probably my go-to. In that little room over there, we'd sort of meet and have a small Bible study. So again, a couple of leaders took us, again, really faithful every Sunday night. I can't remember missing a night, apart from school holidays and things like that. But we got together, sat around the Word, go and get our hot chips, come back over here for the church service at 7 o'clock, and in later years then went on to, what you guys would call late night or something like that. Yeah. But we'd go down to Macca's at, Tarrant Point or Kirrawee that was the rhythm of church. So Sunday nights. And then in a rhythm of serving, I think I was involved with Sunday school for a little bit. So I'd come and do a bit of, junior leading of the Sunday school kids with a couple of the more senior leaders here and stuff like that. I don't think I did that for very long, but that sort of allowed me to then go and lead some of those junior camps and stuff like that were going on. So that's the memory of what church was. Yeah. And then I guess the morning church must have kept going, although I probably didn't get back to that until sort of well into my 20s and things like that. Yeah. That was for the old people, I guess. Sorry, old people.
Shout out to the old people. Wow, so if churches, was there a lot of people there? Sorry, I don't mean to sound disparaging either, because I don't think you have that service at the moment. Is that correct?
The evening service? No, that's right. So again, a little bit of a picture of who we were at the time. In the late 80s, let's say 1989, I think we got a new minister in after the old minister had been here for a long time as well. So Ray Best was sort of almost the founding guy of the FCC in 1977.
What a name!
Ray Best. Ray Best. So he was the minister of Miranda Cong at the time, but he was sort of again getting to retirement age by the end of the 80s. And they appointed a new guy called Ollie Peterson, and he came in and again really gave Miranda Cong a bit of an injection, bit of a revitalisation, and he had then started employing staff as well. And so the 90s and early 2000s was a really cool time here with lots of different people. The evening service that I remember, there was probably 80 to 100 attending that at that point in time, and the morning service must have been pretty big as well. Like there must have been sort of closer to the 200 rather than the 100. So that's what MCC looked like in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Can I ask you, what do you think changed to that? People stopped coming, and then as a result, there was no longer an evening service. I mean, and we'll get into obviously our MCC in relationship with Soul Revival and all those things later. But I was just wondering, what do you think was the reason that they kind of dwindled down a bit?
Yeah, I wouldn't say there was any one silver bullet. I would say that there were a number of things that contributed to that. So I think overarching sort of the societal changes that were happening at the time. As in church isn't as popular anymore. So I think that was one of those things. We had some challenges at MCC in the mid-2000s, let's say, where, Ollie got sick and was unable to continue in his role. So there was a transition of the pastoral team at that point in time as well. So I think some of that trajectory we were on, I think we lost some of that towards the end of the 2000s, let's say. And then that was really hard to get back again in the 2010s. So the 2010s have been probably that time where things were getting difficult and finding it hard to sort of, right the ship. And then I think when we talk about where the evening service was, and again, I can only speak from my side of things, but by 2007 we started having kids and started growing our family, so we sort of moved away from the evening, sort of more to the morning church style of things, and I guess during that time there was probably an age group that sort of moved on from the evening church, handed over to a new group of people, and they, as I say, that probably kept going. Yeah, right up until COVID, and I think COVID was one of those times that we were really, smacked about with.
As were almost every church.
Yeah, and I guess we at the time, and I now speak as the leadership of MCC, probably made the decisions to focus on making sure we could get one service online, which was typically that morning service. The evening we did try a couple of different things, like doing some Zoom calls together and stuff like that, but it didn't, it wasn't sustainable. So we didn't come back and start doing the evening services after that.
I mean, the whole time for every church, it was tough to do that, to do the online. So and to have to transition so quickly and not be able to meet together, like it was, it was really difficult. Let's rewind a little bit though. Finishing, you went to schoolies. We talked about. What did you have any idea what you wanted to do after you finished school?
Absolutely not. So
it's the answer for so many people. Right?
So again, the way that played out, I had a part-time job up at Miranda Fair, as it was called, in the newsagent up there. So that was my Thursday night and Saturday, sometimes Sunday job in the later years of high school, and again, I was given the keys and put in charge to go and get the newspapers in at 6:30 on Saturday morning. So I either assumed that was because I was really responsible, or no one else wanted to get up at that time to do it. So I was doing that job for a little bit, and the owner of that news agency had just bought some airport shops. Ooh. So he bought 5 airport shops around Australia, and so he'd given me the access to go and see the shop out at Sydney Airport and do some stock takes for him and things like that. And when it came to finishing school, again, hadn't got really much of an idea about what I wanted to do. Didn't know whether I wanted to do uni or anything like that. That sounded a little bit crazy. But he said to me, I'd done some work experience with him, and he just said, well, I'll give you a full-time job if you go to uni. I went, I don't really want to go to uni. So anyway, the way it played out, I got the full-time job, which started even earlier at the airport. So started at 4:45 out at the airport to get the papers in. So for the first couple of years out of school, I picked up a Bachelor of Commerce degree and started doing that part-time. So that was 2 to 3 nights a week, usually from 6 p.m. till sort of either 8 or 10. And I was doing those early morning shifts at the airport, 5 till 2, and I was doing that sort of 4 to 5 days a week. So it was a pretty full-on time in those first couple of years. But again, that was just awesome.
Yeah, I was going to say, I can see you smiling. It looks like you enjoyed doing that.
Yeah. Well, working at the airport, I mean, that's a whole other story. But everyone travels through the airport, celebrities, politicians, and things like that. So you're standing on the cash register in the news agency at the airport, and I'm meeting politicians. Gough and Margaret Whitlam. I didn't even know who they were at the time, but they used to come into the shop all the time.
Did they all the time?
All the time. Pick up his papers. I'm sure to read about everyone else, not about him. Yeah. But
well, he was finished by then.
Way finished. Yeah.
Yeah, because he got booted out in 70.
Yeah, way before I was born, Joel.
Yeah,
way before. That was the cool thing about doing those things, and again, as a younger person with a lot more energy than what you have sort of now in your early 40s. That was just an awesome time. As I say, if someone asked me to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go to work now, I'd probably tell them where to go. But it was pretty cool at the time. Yeah.
You know what? I used to love going to the newsagent. Like it was just, but it had to be a good one. Like there was a big difference between a good newsagent and a bad newsagent. But just like, because I used to always look at all the different magazines that were there. I just love magazines.
Yep.
I was a heavy reader of magazines when there was like, especially car magazines and motor racing and even later on like football, soccer magazines. What's the key to having a good news agency, do you think?
Well, these days, I don't think they're around anymore.
No, there's not many, is there?
Yeah, again, because the whole magazine and newspaper market has basically gone onto devices. It's really died off. Again, for the airports, we made sure we had good lollies in there.
Yeah.
So lots of good lollies, because you need a lolly to suck on the plane to clear your ears up, don't you? I mean, you know.
Yeah.
So here's a $10 bag of lollies that you need. $10. 2 for $11. Yeah.
Oh, really? $10 and then 2 for $11?
Well, look, yeah. So again, I've continued that job in certain different ways over the last few years, but I have to take some responsibility for the price of a bottle of water at the airport being $5 or 2 for $6. So I take some responsibility for that.
Very cool. And did you just end up selling books? Because that's another thing, isn't it? A bookstore at the airport usually goes all right, doesn't it? Because they're like, I'm travelling, I'll buy a book.
Well, I think that's how the owner of these newsagents made his money. He was known to have really good bookshops at the airport. So he bought these old bookshops back from, the airline used to run the shops. Oh. And so airlines run airlines, you need good retailers to run retail shops. So he came in and turned them around, and I think he was one of the pioneers of that newsagent bookshop at the airport. And so that's
because my memory is that when you even went to domestic airports around, once you go through security, you're then I've got nothing to do. So people would spend lots of time in the newsagent and then you'd buy a magazine and then you'd read the magazine on the plane. So
yep.
Do you think that I'm guessing that's not really the case as much anymore? It'd be a different kind of market.
Yeah, you scroll on your phone now.
Yeah, everyone's on their phone, right?
But so now there's a couple of options. One is lounges. You go and sit in the lounge to scroll on your phone, get a cup of coffee, get a plate of crackers and a bit of a meal. But I still think there's still romance of travel, despite a number of people that
that's true.
Just have to travel for work, and I'm probably one of those guys that has to travel for work, so I just see it as a long bus ride. But a lot of people still see it as quite a bit of fun to go travelling, and still have once you've got through the check-in and putting your bag on, getting it screened and everything. I still think once you get through, there's sort of a moment where you can go and get a cup of coffee. The bookshops are still there. You can still go and have a bit of a flick through the bookshop, but there's typically a lot of other shops. So I guess that's where retail therapy comes into it. You can go and check out the perfumes or the Lego shop or whatever you like. So.
Is there a Lego shop in the airport?
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
I love going to the Lego shop.
Yeah.
That's a lot of fun.
Oh, we'll check it out next time.
Well, now they've put one in Miranda. That's every time Miranda, I'll just go past the Lego shop.
Yeah.
I don't usually do much research for these podcasts because the only reason is I want to react to what our guest says. But the one note I did say was go through his LinkedIn for Craig. I thought it might be a bit of fun to look through your work history because you seem like you're a bit of a corporate dog, as you were saying before. Do you mind if I read your about section?
Oh, come on. Go on.
I know. This is the thing, is one of the worst things about applying for a job is that you have to talk about yourself, right? And it's and you have to sell yourself. So I always feel bad when you have to do something like that. So I'm not trying to embarrass you. Sorry. I just thought it'd be fun to do.
If you know some marketing people that can put some better words behind it, let's go.
I think this sounds pretty good from what I've read. I'm an experienced business professional with extensive executive management experience in strategic planning and negotiation with the captive retail markets and across multiple brands. Are you going for lots of keywords there?
Yes.
Yes, it's very impressive. You work within several organisations around the world. I have a proven track record of delivering profitable projects within timeframes and budgets. I love this. Qualifications in commerce and management. Should I say this? You're justice of the peace. Oh, yeah. People will come up and ask you to sign things.
Yeah, they do. They do.
And a graduate of the Australian Institute of Company Directors and have strong community and people skills with the ability to manage diverse teams across multiple cultures and locations. That sounds like very professional. But is that where you talked about the news agency? Is that where you kind of working those news agencies? Is that where you think it's led to that kind of career description that I just read out? Is wanting to do that kind of thing?
Certainly that's my career grounding, and my career grounding's on that side. I think that there's certainly an organisational grounding that I've got out of being part of a church community as well.
Okay.
So again, working with strong leaders in community organisations like churches and football teams and stuff like that's given me the other side of, I guess, that grounding. Yeah. There's so many crossovers, and I think one thing I'm very aware of being part of church leadership is we're not a business at a church. We're a group of people. We're an organisation. So people first. Yeah. Retail, sometimes you say that as well. You'd want you'd want your customers first and things like that. But I do think both of those things have contributed to, I guess, the skills that I guess have put into that. Which, may I say, that particular, I've not been without a job in the time I've left school. So I've not had a time out of work. And again, I put that over to God. That's not me. But again, through COVID and things like that, He's always kept me employed and always, been able to give me work. So that's been awesome.
I'm just again looking through your career. What do they call it? Your experience. A lot of travel involved. How does that fit in with life? Do you think of having to travel a lot?
Yeah, it's a challenge. Again, on two sides, it's pretty interesting. I guess on one side, I've been able to go to a lot of different places. But I'll come back and use that term. It's a long bus ride. Yeah. So if you need to go to Melbourne for the day or something like that, you're typically waking up early in the morning. Yeah. Pop down to Melbourne, have your meetings, pop back on the plane, and you're home when people are in bed. Yeah. So I don't like doing that very often. And then over the last sort of 6 months, there's been a bit of international travel as well. So it means I'm away from home for a couple of weeks, and the burden that gets put on Kaylin and the rest of the family is the challenge there. So as I say, I used the romance of travel before for other people that get to have holidays and stuff like that on planes, but I do think for the daily grind of having to do it for a job, there are some challenges with that. But again, it's pretty cool to go to different places too.
Can I ask you on the traveller scale of, first time ever to like George Clooney up in the air? Where are you on that scale of like? Yeah, have you got everything locked down? You know what you're doing every time you get on a plane and all that kind of thing. And you know what seat you want, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So I know which seat I want. I know what I should and shouldn't carry in my bag, so I know what I'm going to get picked up on. I also know that the new scanners at airports, they pick up the tags on the top of R.M. Williams boots. So. Yeah, don't wear R.M. Williams boots on planes. Tags? Yeah, well, they don't, but the scanners pick it up, and so every time I sort of, now get, Oh,
well, those North Shore Cowboys.
Yeah.
North Shore Cowboys.
Corporate Cowboys.
Yeah, well, sorry.
What's your number one travel tip then for people? Are you doing like 2 weeks, no checked luggage or something like that?
No way.
Oh,
no,
really?
I still take a massive bag, and look. Again, I've got family in the UK at the moment, and so when I go across, there's a lot of souvenirs that need to go across and come back and things like that. So
yes.
Again, big shout out to my second cousin, I think he is, who loves a box of Nutrigrain.
Ooh,
because they can't get it in the UK.
A man of fine taste.
A big box of Nutrigrain takes up a lot of space in your bag.
Those massive ones.
Massive boxes of Nutrigrain. So I've been taking one of those with me at the moment. So I do need a big bag. So.
My dad lives in the US. He's on a fair bit of travel, and he's like, I think he went. Where did he come? He went somewhere for 2 weeks, and he just did carry on. And I was like, "That's impressive, Dad. Like, that's not bad."
Yeah,
because I don't like waiting for bags either.
Yeah, I'm not there yet.
No, that's all right. And no criticism, no shade thrown.
Yes, I'm nowhere near Clooney yet. So still.
I do like that. The flying part of that movie I like, but when he has to just fire people, it's awful. Have you seen that movie?
No idea what you're talking about.
It's called Up in the Air. It's George Clooney's like just a dude that goes around basically handing out redundancies.
Oh, okay.
But like part of the show is that he's like super efficient getting on and off flights and achieves like this frequent flyer status and all those kind of things. So he knows he's flown that much. He's an absolute king at doing that.
Favorite airplane movie?
Flying High.
Yeah, so I was pushing at that as a few or airplane Flying High. It's called both.
Yeah.
Comedy movie with
Oh, is that with
Leslie?
when they talk jive
Nelson?
on the plane?
Yeah,
Yes, they talk jive.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is the co-pilot. Yeah, I was talking about that movie because some friends watched it for the first time on Monday on Easter Monday.
I don't think I've seen it.
And Brad did the classic thing of like, oh, this movie's great, and putting it on and forgetting half the things that happen in a movie. And so shout out to Brad. I'd love that movie. It's very funny, but don't watch it.
It was era appropriate.
Yes, that is a great political way of putting it. Yes, but there's some great jokes.
Yeah.
Do you have your number one travel tip though? Did we already talk just the RM moves? Yeah, RM moves.
Yeah, don't wear those. So you know, comfortable clothes. You know, all of those things. Yeah. So
Cool. Sorry to go. It fascinates me people's behaviour when it comes to planes. Like, I remember saying to whether it was my wife or my dad, I can't remember. It never ceases to amaze me how stupid people become when they get.
Just start picking it.
What do you mean, like on a flight?
Yeah. Oh, dude. So people. Yeah.
Or like as soon as it takes off, chair back.
That's a no. You can't do that, and it's dependent on number of hours that you're on the plane.
Like, exactly.
If it's 3 hours or less, there's no reclining of the seat.
Yeah. I agree with you.
I've also had some of the best conversations I've ever had with randoms on planes.
Really?
So fun. Yeah. I've met some fun people on planes.
Oh, I feel like I don't want to talk to any, like, because you can't escape.
Domestic US planes. Always the best conversations.
And I know, sorry, I mentioned my dad before. Dad's like, as soon as I get on a plane, headphones are on because I don't want some random American telling me where are you from.
I was talking to this dude. Yeah, it's always Americans, but they're great. I was talking to a dude who was like the Hurt Locker, like the people who dismantle bombs.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I know lots of those guys.
But like that movie, yeah. So he basically was that, and then he had left the
bomb disposal expert?
He had left the military and gone into deep sea diving or something. Yeah, it was a great conversation.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Some people are really fun, but I also understand the AirPods in, and the minute you get on a train or whatever.
Yeah. One more travel question. What's your favorite corporate travel destination? Because it's holidays, but what's your favorite place you're like, I don't like traveling a long way, but if I have to do it, this is where I want to go?
Yeah. I've probably got one that's slightly further away. So I like going to Singapore. Singapore's, it's just a great, clean, neat, tidy. So if you're going for a conference, if you're going for, Caitlin and I went there for a wedding anniversary too. But,
nice.
It's just a great destination to go for, a city holiday if you want.
Not too long from
Sydney that's either. It's 6-7 hours.
Yeah.
So Singapore and then traveling for work in Australia. Again, you typically good thing about working for airport companies is that I fly to the airport for the meeting, have the meeting, and then fly home. So I don't have to sort of then go that onward travel down into the city or anything like that. But
I see.
Yeah, but if you get to travel to sort of a regional port like a Cairns or offending people in Perth, but Perth, regional destination. Sorry, Western capital. Not sure. Those places are pretty cool as well.
Don't they love to say Perth is the most isolated city or the capital city in the world or something like that? Yeah.
Well, they're on the Singapore Hong Kong time zone, so they're far more accessible to the rest of the world than what us East Coast people are.
Like a 2 or 3 hour flight to Bali. They love going up there. I'll talk about travel, but I'll bore people. Yeah. You mentioned you haven't. With Rob, it was infrastructure, and with Craig.
Well, Jai just did travel a couple of weeks ago, so we can't have two travel episodes too close to each other.
I love it how many episodes you've listened to, Craig. Thank you. No wonder the episodes downloads went up in January and February this year. They went massive. You've mentioned Kayleen before, and you said it was childhood sweetheart. Tell us the story of meeting, getting together, and getting married.
Well, again, I'll blame John Pring, my father, for it, but said don't get involved with that family because they were sort of part of this this wider Miranda Cong family. You see, so Kayleen's family sort of dates back probably more generations. Than,
so the meeting of the two great houses.
Yeah, that's. Well, no, the Prings weren't a great house.
I always say if you're going to marry up. That's my one lesson from life.
No, we were clean. We were sort of, we weren't part of this this bigger community, but we got ourselves involved. Well, I got ourselves involved. Is that the right tense? Again, probably, we were always sort of friends growing up, but she was a girl, I was a boy, so it didn't talk to each other for some of it, and then we started talking to each other, and that's sort of where it happened, and
How old were you guys? You first got together.
Look, again, our kids have heard this story as well, but I think we were 14 and we were together for a month, and then I'm sure we were 16 and got together for a year, and she didn't like me again. And then I don't know, we got out of high school and went to uni and stuff like that, and then sort of went, oh well, it's still there. Let's keep going.
It's still there.
Yeah. So a couple of little breaks in between.
The flame is still alive.
Flame is still there. Yeah. And flame, the eternal flame, has continued to burn.
It's karaoke again.
Yes.
Is it called Eternal Flame? That's what it's called, isn't it?
Is that the Bangles or Belinda Carlisle? I can't remember.
This is turning into a musical podcast.
It does.
Yeah.
Maybe
your life through song.
Next time.
Oh yes. Your life through song. This is your life through song. Okay, so you're together from when you were 16. Oh no, you had another break, didn't you?
Yeah, there was another break. Yeah.
You said that she didn't like you again.
Yeah, again.
Is that so twice? She's broken up with
so
you?
after 14, she didn't like me then. Didn't like me after 16, 17. So.
Oh, something kept her coming back.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Do you know what that was?
No, absolutely not. I only can put myself down to being a horrible, teenage boy. That's all.
You mean a teenage boy?
Yeah.
Just a teenage boy.
Yeah, that's it. That's all I can put that down to. But look, by the time we were 20, 21, we'd sorted ourselves out, and thought this was it. So yeah.
Yeah, the flame still burns.
That's it. Stood up on this stage at the ripe old age of 21 and 22 and made those vows, and here we are still.
Wow. That's pretty cool. As someone that, Brad and I are both from non-Christian families, and it's kind of special to talk to someone who's been at the same church for the entirety of their life. I think that's really cool. And you go through all those stages of life that you've just described, from primary school, high school, dating, and then you get married here, and now you and your kids come here as well. Tell us about your kids, and a question I always like to ask is, what has God taught you through being a parent? Or why don't we start with the husband? Start with the husband, and then what has God taught you through being a parent as well?
Through being a husband, I guess, and again, the worldly answer is probably very different to the godly or the more biblical answer to it. Again, I understand that the world wants to see equality, and I'm actually, I'm a big fan of equality as well. I think that's what it's all about. I think I was sort of brought up and took the role of husband as a pretty serious role. And I hesitate to use the word head of the household, but that was the way that I was brought up, and probably the way that I entered marriage. And I think we entered marriage that way, but with equality over parenting, equality over sort of the way we ran our marriage and things like that. So that's how I'd see that.
Like the biblical role is, it's different roles, but it's still mutual service of each other. It's about serving and loving each other in those differences.
Well, yeah, I think it's pretty clear that God has made men and women different for particular reasons, but I think He sees them exactly equal. They just might have tendencies and design towards different roles. I think that's where you're going with it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and I mean, this, like, I just think about my marriage. So many things that my wife is better than me. Like, I'm glad I've got her.
Yeah.
Compared to just me running the show. Goodness me, it'd be tightly scheduled, but it might not be great sometimes.
Yeah, and I think certainly in our, let's call it the formative years of marriage, Kayleen was exceptionally supportive of work for me. Again, she worked as well, but again, I guess allowed my work to be prioritised, and that was sort of how things sort of played out. And then when kids came along, again, she prioritised my work, and she stayed at home to be able to do the child rearing activities and a lot more of the school activities. So if you're going on the report card of how many school activities she's been to versus me, she definitely wins that, and has definitely sort of formed the school community relationships better than I have, because she's sort of led that side of things.
Especially if you're travelling for work so much.
Yeah, that's it. So that's probably how, that's what I've learned from, trying to be a husband and then a father, my role's been probably more on the breadwinner side of things, and hers has been more on the family raising side of things, I guess.
Do you think God has taught you anything in that though? Like something really specific that you're like, God actually put me in these scenarios to do this specific thing?
Yeah, and again, I try to come back to I think I'm learning across every area of life at the moment. When it comes to sort of some of those leadership roles that I've had to take in work or sort of in the church community as well. So I guess, coming back, I hate using the word headship, but some of those headship roles and stuff like that, I think of...
Why do you hate using the word headship?
Why do I hate it?
Is it because it carries connotations with it that people may misinterpret what you're saying by it?
Yeah, I feel I'm really inadequate to be a leader or in headship. So that's why I don't like the word. I much prefer to sort of be someone serving within a team of people, and perhaps that's reflective of me. If I was in an army or something like that, I don't think I'd be the guy out the front, but I'm certainly wanting to support the guy out the front.
Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah, so that's why I don't like the word. I don't like using it about myself. There's other people that I'd absolutely use that word for.
But I the only reason I asked you that, and I feel a bit surprised in it, is because like some of the roles, going back to your LinkedIn again, some of your roles have been very strong, like very high up leadership roles. So it's interesting that I don't know if it's you don't want to take that role in family, or I just find there's an interesting disparity between those two things.
Yeah, great question.
I don't know if it was a question. I think I made a statement.
Yeah, well, great statement. I don't know, and again, I'll leave that to others to sort of determine where I sit within that. But as I say, I think hopefully I play better in a team rather than sort of playing out the front. But I don't know. Some people may
football,
disagree.
Not tennis.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, I love team sport. Like it's my favourite thing. When I used to do swimming, my favourite event was the relay, not the individual events, because you're doing it together as a team. So I can totally understand that.
Yeah. I mean, I'd probably describe myself as jack of all trades and master at none, possibly.
A generalist.
Generalist. So maybe that's how it is. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Oh, sorry. What does family look like for you now? Like you've mentioned kids.
Yeah. Yep. So again, we've got 3 kids in high school now, so that's a whole new phase of life and parenting and driving around. We have someone now with P plates, which sort of does allow a little bit more freedom as well. So that's pretty cool, and that also means that there's an HSC coming up, and it also means that there's those life decisions that I was having to make. 20, 30 years ago, that are also being made as well. So that's what family life looks like now. Still in the Shire, so again, Shire born and bred. But that's what family looks like. Mum and Dad are still living down the road.
That's
so
cool.
again, we still do church together, and Kayleen's mum still lives down the road, but does church elsewhere.
Yeah.
But that's what family looks like in the Shire, and then we've obviously got other siblings living elsewhere in the world, from the US to Brisbane to further down in the Shire. So yeah.
At least you've got a few places to travel to with cheap accommodation.
Yeah, that's right. It's just the expensive flights to get to some of these places is the issue.
Yeah.
Oh, sure, you got some points there in the bag.
Yeah. One or two.
Can I ask a selfish question? At the moment, I'm struggling a little bit, like seeing my children grow up, and from being toddlers and early primary school age to my son's in year 5 now. Your children are all in high school. How have you been dealing with or understanding that transition for knowing that they don't rely on you as much, but they still need your support in a different way? I'd love to hear what you've learnt through that. Yeah,
and again, I guess you're formed by the way that you were brought up as well.
True.
So again, the way I was brought up again, I think was with a fair degree of independence. So again, going back to that schooly scenario, and question, if I was in my dad's shoes, would I have let me go to schoolies week?
Yeah.
I reckon that was a really bold decision that mum and dad made at that point in time to allow that independence and freedom. So I guess I've tried to sort of model that with our kids as well, that there's a level of independence and responsibility given to them. Does that make it easy? No, it doesn't. And I think these days with these monitoring devices that we give them means that we always know where they are. We always know they can contact us. Despite me debating with our kids that you don't actually need a phone to go for a walk, you can do it without a phone. That's how we used to do it, and we didn't get attacked and we didn't get lost. But I think, and again, I come back to, look, God's in control. I have a responsibility to raise them as best as I can, but at the end of the day, they're my children, but they're His children. So again, so long as I raise them in such a way, He's got them. He's got this.
Yeah, that's helpful. Sometimes I think I'm struggling with letting a little bit of control go, where I had a lot more control prior to that in terms of their safety and things like that.
They had reliance on you, and I guess there's a point where they don't have reliance on you anymore, and that can be a bit scary. And I'll actually use a small analogy of learner plates and P plates going on, but certainly. There's the point in time where learner drivers, they need their support driver next to them, and they're asking lots of questions and, where do I turn and how do I do this, etc. And then there was the day that the confidence kicked in.
Yeah.
And that was probably a, whoa, okay, where did that confidence come from? I haven't seen that before. And I think that's the point where reliance on you is no longer there. It's reliance on, I've got the skills now, I'm ready to go.
Yeah, you want to build that confidence, like you're saying. Yeah, no, that's really helpful. I just wanted to pick up on something else that you said before, that you said that what seems to happen for you in every area of life at the moment is I can't remember exact words, but it was more like you're growing or you're really changing your understanding of things. Why were you saying that?
Sorry, try that again. But
well, you actually said, I feel like in every area of my life, things are changing or growing at the moment. And I was wondering why you may have said that, that's all. And I may have misheard it as well.
Yeah. So the changing and growing, I think every day we're changing and growing and renewing in our relationship with God, in our relationship with each other. So I don't think there's too many days that you sit there and you're not learning and growing. Certainly, I'll just reflect over the last 5 years. Because the 10 years prior to that was pretty consistent for me. We were raising kids. I was in the same job. Everything was sort of, pretty consistent. Get up, go to work, send the kids to school, go to church on Sundays. That was consistency. By 2020, the world changed. So we we had to change the way we did school. I actually changed a job that time as well. So I resigned from a role on the 31st of January 2020 in the travel retail industry. And go back to the comment I made about never having had a day without a job in my entire career. I would continue to go into a job during COVID in the travel industry.
Wow.
So again, I've been looked after in that regard, but that was change. And again, in that time, I think things were changing at church as well. So very much MCC was changing through that period as well. Again, my role on leadership at MCC, again, I was part of sort of the team, and we were having to navigate some weird and wonderful stuff going on in that time. How do we run a church service? How do we go and visit people? Again, we had a couple of pretty cool leaders here at the time that we were sort of being able to navigate life together with, which was fun and cool. But it certainly meant we had to learn and had to react quickly.
Is that kind of because, like, as we talked about some of your life history, you've grown up in the same place, same church, and then it felt like around COVID time and maybe a bit before that, it was like a period of upheaval for you? Like things, so many different things were changing all at the same time. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So you're probably right. In the first 30 years of my life, everything was pretty consistent. And then things suddenly started to change and to adapt. And I guess I had to do the same. And as I say, probably the last 5 years have been more change than what I'm used to.
What's the thing that you've learnt from that? Do you think, with all that upheaval and change?
Yeah, and possibly comes back to something I just sort of said about the responsibility with kids and that it's about control. So this isn't a confessional, but certainly one of my sins would have to be being in control. So I think in that time, handing things over to God's been something that I found it was certainly challenging and probably is still challenging today. But I'm finding ways of doing that a lot better now. Trusting him and being able to hand just some of the most weirdest scenarios over to him, and he
kind of being okay with that ambiguity a bit more.
Yeah, that's it. So again, I can't quite see where the road's going, but I know he's got this.
I think that's something that I've struggled with over different times of my life. Is that I can just do it in some time, but the thing is, if you just hold on to something so tightly, often you can't even let it go or change something. But if you know that, like, God's always going to provide an answer, whether I like it or not, whether I like the answer or not. And often the time it's just like, I just want to have the answers that I want to have. But I think he'll just have these periods in your life, he'll just teach you, hang on, you're doing it too much again. I've got you, and I've from the moment Jesus died on the cross, I've got you. So now you need to let me take control of it. Keep working hard to keep doing your best, but give it to me. Don't just have to take it all on yourself. Yeah.
No, absolutely. Yeah. So that's what I think I've again certainly been reminded of. I'm sure he's been telling me the entire time, but I've hopefully started listening.
Yeah, that's all right. So speaking of upheaval and change, let's go on to talking about the.
Can we quickly?
Please.
I thought
interrupt me.
You're before we get to like maybe some of the bigger decisions that MCC has made in the last little bit. How did you get involved in leadership at MCC? Like, what did that look like? You're the secretary now, technically.
Oh, something like
that. I'm trying to remember what terms. Sorry, the terms are different, obviously. Through congregational churches and Anglican churches and everything else, I guess. But how did you get involved in like leadership at MCC? Like, what did that look like for you, stepping into that or
control?
Yeah, totally. I guess take a step back to how I ended up in those roles. I think there were some really cool leaders here. Again, in those formative years and my early 20s, that again, I was able to work with, consult with, talk with, be mentored by. And again, some of them are still with us today. Some of them unfortunately aren't. Some of them have gone to glory, which is cool. And some of them have gone to other sort of churches and being used elsewhere. But certainly I remember one of our associate pastors sort of, it wasn't done in such a way, Braden, I'd really like it if you could possibly, get up the front and do a reading this week. It was done in here's the reading, you're up here on Sunday, no questions asked. So again, maybe that was era appropriate as well, but that's how we were sort of trained up and brought into leadership. So here's your job, it needs to be done. Get on and do it. Yeah, sounds a bit harsh, and again, I've tried that with my children, and that doesn't seem to work. So I think that's where it sort of started, and then as I joined what was called the diaconate, probably when I was 23 years old. So very, very young and influenced, I think. But what it allowed me to do is sort of work with a bunch of other sort of church leaders and see how things were done. So again, in those formative years, being able to see how church was run. If we go back to sort of what a congregational church is, well, it's the priesthood of all believers is sort of the principle that sits behind it. The responsibility of the members is to continue to spread the gospel through a community of believers. Now they do elect some leaders, as I say, called deacons. The other word that's thrown around a little bit is elder. Miranda chose not to use the word elder, but use the word ministry team leader, just because we wanted to tread around some issues around women in leadership back at the time those decisions were made. But they were the two elected positions, and of course the third elected position was pastor. And so, typically Miranda's elected a senior pastor and then elected, associate pastors that follow that as well. From 23, I guess I joined the diaconate and started being a deacon.
A deacon in the diaconate.
A deacon in the diaconate. And I think the role of deacon was, again, to make sure that the physical affairs of the church were looked after. That was the traditional role of that. So making sure buildings, offerings, finances.
Similar to a warden. Right? Is that
typically. Okay. Typically, I think it'd be closer to warden or parish council. In the soul revival system, let's say, and then ministry team was sort of or elders were sort of brought in to support the pastors and to sort of look after the spiritual oversight of the people as well. So again, that's the role I then took on probably a couple of years ago in post-COVID, I think it was. So less admin and feeding the widows, as the Bible might call them, as deacons, but more so of the spiritual oversight stuff, which is probably more like the Soulies pastoral team, I guess. So that's the roles that I've done, and then this secretary role. I'm sure it's just an admin role, but I think it's a constitutional role too, which I take very seriously. But making sure that the affairs of the church kept going. That's what congregationalism looked like.
Yeah, very cool.
I suppose a question around that is, and it'll obviously lead to talking about a burgeoning relationship with Soul Revival. So does that mean a congregational church votes on all those matters? You have to be a member to vote on all those important matters. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. So membership again is done in such a way that you would come and speak to the pastors or leaders to request to come into membership. Your name would be brought forward to a church meeting before the next church meeting. That allows the members to vet you and raise any concerns. And then at the following meeting, you would be brought into membership at that point in time. And again, the assumption is that membership role is quite serious. Being a member of a church, you're responsible for, again, praying for it, contributing to it financially, contributing to the operations of it. So again, that's what membership of the congregational church is about. It's a role. You've got to do something. You can't just sit in the pews and watch the show.
What do you think the pros and cons of that are? Because I'm only saying that as someone who's like, I've only grown up in Anglican churches, so I don't know anything different.
Yeah. Well, again, I guess it's where yeah,
you can tread carefully.
I was going to say people have probably written massive theses on this, and I've certainly not done any studies.
Yeah, but they're not on this podcast.
No, that's good. I think pros and cons of it. Well, again, headship under Christ, right? That's how we would see it. So there's no bishops intervening. There's nothing like that. But certainly Christ is the head of the church, and the members of that church are responsible for praying and interpreting again what Christ wants for the church and for leading the church that way. I think what that does create though is some ambiguity about headship, leadership roles. Who's in charge? Jesus is in charge, Christ is in charge, but there are some tangible things that need to be navigated here on earth that we need to highlight who that person is or who those people are that are in charge. And I think some of the challenges under that governance model means that it's unclear some of the time.
Okay. So let's talk about the Miranda Congregational Church recently voted to join Soul Revival. What's the... I'd like to hear your perspective on how that kind of eventuated. Rob has talked about it before, and I think he spoke really well on it last time he was on, but I'd love to hear it from your perspective. And I know you were part of the leadership team, as you were saying, secretary and a number of other admin roles. So, and I know you're on the same team as Rob. So what was it from your perspective that led to, first of all, talking to, what was that? That's your phone.
Laptop, possibly not.
But is it linked to something? That was really loud.
Yeah.
It's fine. We don't kick you off the podcast for your phone ringing. What do you think for you led to even inviting Stu to have a chat with him? Really, that's the first question. Yeah,
again, probably coming back to, let's call it the sort of mid-2010s. We'd obviously been looking at ourselves and working out why some of the things were happening the way they were, why decline was happening, and what were some of the things that we could do to stop that from happening. So we'd had a couple of conversations with other churches about getting together and I guess being better stewards of the resources that we had. Like, again, go back to this fabulous facility, well located.
Yep.
How could we better use this facility? And I think there was certainly a feeling from a bunch of us that we weren't using it as well as what we could. And this group of believers, had to change, had to do something different. So a couple of different ideas had come up over the time, and certainly being part of the Fellowship of Cong Churches, there was I'm going to call him out, but Lee Murray sort of got together a bunch of the Cong churches in the Shire. This must have been sort of in the late 2010s, and said, "Come on, guys, we can do this better together, rather than sort of acting as independent churches." So I think he really had a vision for the Fellowship of Cong Churches in this area to come together and do something better. For whatever reason, that didn't happen. And again, you could claim 2020 was one of those challenging years that if we'd have worked better together, we could have possibly got a better result. But I think everyone was trying to navigate things as Miranda was as well. And probably the divide sort of happened there. We all had to run off and go and do things quite independently at that point in time and navigate things. So gets us into COVID. The decline and everything was continuing to happen in numbers, finances, etc. So again, we tried a couple of different things. We tried to, tidy the property up, make it more welcoming and invest some money back into the property and do things like that. But again, just putting lipstick on a pig doesn't do anything there. It's about the people, and it's about sort of, again, the spiritual health of the church. So again, the members at the end of 2021 voted to look into the spiritual health and get an independent review done on MCC. So we engaged City to City. Tim Keller's Redeemer Church in New York had been doing some cool stuff. City to City Australia was kicked off, and we're looking into the spiritual health of churches. And they had a project called Revitalisation Australia, which again we looked at, and they were probably best aligned, theologically with us, probably liturgically as well. Like they seem to look as if they could help us. So we engaged them. We got a really cool consultant came up and sort of came and spoke to us. They did sort of some one-on-one interviews with our members. We did sort of a church-wide survey, 360-degree review on the senior pastor and stuff like that. Again, the report came back and it was pretty hard to read. It was pretty hard to receive in that.
For some of the things that they. Okay, wow.
Yeah. So again, I'm putting it in the context that this is my home. This is where I've been all my life. And for someone outside to come along and say, well, guess what? There's no reason why you guys shouldn't be growing. There's no reason. You've got a whole community outside this church, but that's not the case. And we think it's because you're spending a lot more time looking at yourselves internally rather than looking at sort of the mission field outside.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
So if you're going to change, there's some of the things that you need to look at. So there's probably a bunch of points in that report that we decided that we had to act upon. And I think that's where the leadership at the time were challenged to go, okay, we need to act upon these things. We can't sit there and, again, look, God can do anything, but I think he also calls us to act. And so that's probably where the conversation started. We had to make some decisions along the way that weren't comfortable and had to have some tough conversations, which, again, I don't like doing. I'm not George Clooney in that way. I can't go and have those tough conversations. But certainly I think relationally we got together and had some of those conversations and, I guess it did end up with sort of... I spoke to one of the guys at the FCC or the leader of the FCC and said to him, this is where we're at. What do you reckon? He says, do you know Stu Crawshaw? I went, no. Heard his name. Do you want to have a cup of coffee with him? And so a couple of us went and had a cup of coffee with Stu. And again, from the point of view that Solly's had been able to navigate some stuff that seemed to be working. And I guess the initial conversation was what's working and how could we possibly go and roll that out at MCC.
Wow. And then so from there was kind of the, correct me if I get the timeline wrong, but from there was kind of, I believe that discussion eventually led to asking Stu to be an interim senior pastor. And as we know, it's led to formalising that relationship a lot more and make him senior pastor for a long time. What's in between that time of going, we need to make a big change, that's what you talked about before, and then coming to even having Stu as an interim pastor, how do you think that changed within MCC? Did that change how people were thinking about the church, or did it have that kind of revitalising effect you were looking for?
It had a stabilising effect. So I'd say we'd been talking about revitalisation or renewal for a long time, but I guess it's what does that tangibly look like? And whilst we were talking about things that we had to do, we weren't doing it. And again, some of that I will, say that when you're sort of trying to navigate a church through a crisis that no one really knows what it's about, and as people are scattering in that time as well, and finding church at home a bit easier to do, so we don't have to go and see other people. I think it's times like that again, there's those people that sort of step up and go, yep, I want to help and want to get this going, and then there's those that sort of go, I think I can contribute better elsewhere. Yeah. And so I think that's sort of what happened during that time. I think Stu looked at us, and I do remember saying this to him, and again, I hope it doesn't offend too many people out there, but I just said, Stu, I think we're at a point where we'll throw the keys under the front mat and we'll walk away from it because it's all getting too hard.
Wow.
And he said, don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that. We can't afford to lose churches in the Shire.
Right.
Again, there's so many people that aren't reached yet. So how can we help you? How can we help you reach those people? And I think that was really cool to hear, because I think we'd sort of been in the world of, we're ready to give up. But I think he gave this revitalising effect to that conversation and sort of said, well, how can we help? how could we help you? And I think it was a couple of things we asked for. We didn't know whether he could help with that or whether Soul Revival could help with that, but we asked him for some help with the teaching and preaching on Sundays, which again has just been really awesome. We've had some really great speakers in that time.
You were a pastor for a while, right?
Yeah, so it was. I mean, it was effectively one term. We had again some great people came along and filled the pulpit during that time. So again, we didn't go too many weeks where we were without someone bringing God's word to us, which was, again, praise God for that. But certainly the consistency of teaching, we picked that up again in term 4 when sort of the Soulies team could come along and sort of talk with us that way. We asked for some preaching, teaching. We asked for some help in youth because again, our youth leaders at the time were struggling with a few things, both in numbers, just with content and some leadership. So again, we got some support from that side of things. And then Stu offered to help us with some leadership development as well. So we were without a pastor, so it was lay leaders that were effectively trying to navigate the ship. And so he offered to support us with that too. So we thought the best way is, well, let's call him as interim pastor. And that was, again, with the support of City to City, they said, it'd be probably good if you can get someone to be your interim pastor, but don't do it for too long because you'll all just think that that's the answer. Stick it to 6 months, gives you time to stabilise, get on your feet, understand where you're at, to then be able to sort of shape the direction you think you should be taking it. So it's worth me saying as well, in our report, one of the things that it highlighted was the support structures that we had for MCC. So again, as I've briefly touched on about congregationalism and again membership being the team that leads the church, I think the City to City guys were able to look at that structure and go, well, where is the leadership that sits in that? Who's got the authority? Who's got the leadership under that? And they highlighted that our current structure, being a fellowship of independent churches, and not really a denomination to rely on, and rely on is probably a harsh word, but they're not set up in that way to be able to sort of support churches through what we were going through. So I think there was a question in our mind about what where we could get that support from. So how we could resource the Fellowship of Cong churches up to be able to give us those resources. And that's still ongoing work today, by the way. So City to City are continuing to work with the Fellowship of Cong churches on how we can resource up the denomination to support independent churches. But I think at the end of the day, the leaders felt that the structure that Soulies had sitting under the Sydney Anglicans was something that was going to give us sort of an immediate effect and sort of get us back to the spiritual health that we'd been looking for.
It's a lot to go through. Like we talk about upheaval and change. There's a lot to go through, just not just for yourself and the leadership team, but also the church as a whole. But eventually, it seemed to go reasonably well, having Stu as the interim pastor, and you guys voted, was it 3 weeks ago? I can't remember, 3 or 4 weeks ago?
Yep.
You guys voted on, now I'd love for you to, because there was 2 motions, wasn't there? And I, full disclosure, I kept getting confused by the 2 of them for some reason, I don't know why. But there was 2 motions that you guys voted on. You will be able to detail them much better than I, so do you want to say what they were?
Yeah, so again, you're working within the realms of a constitution because there's an organisation that needs to follow the rules of governance that we've agreed to do. So one of those things we felt we again, at the same time as Miranda was going through its stuff, Soul Revival was doing some other stuff that was really cool. I think it was called Double Up, and I think it was the 2030 vision and things like that. Again, correct me if I'm sort of not
There's
right
a 2030 goal, that's right.
Yeah.
And again, this is where I come back to a control thing. If we were trying to control things and do it our way, I certainly wouldn't have been pushing Miranda to go into sort of the direction with Soul Revival. It would have been recruiting a new pastor, bringing a new pastoral team, and Miranda being, again, a strong independent body with a guy that could lead the church forward.
Yeah.
There's my answer to it. God's gone, nah.
Nope.
I had a better idea. This church down the road's got a 2030 vision about doubling up, and you need some help. So why don't we get you to have a conversation? And as I say, similar to that conversation of the Fellowship of Cong churches, where we can thrive off each other. So I do think the idea of a fellowship of churches or a fellowship of gatherings in the case of Soul Revival is a good model. So the two motions come back to the Constitution. The Constitution says we can elect a pastor. So in order to, again, for Soul Revival to do the work of ministry here at Miranda, we thought the way to do that is to call Stu as the senior pastor of the church to lead the church. And we'll make the motion in such a way that you'll be leading the church as Soul Revival, and it will be run as a church plant of Soul Revival. So we're asking our members to basically agree to that. So would you agree calling Stu as the senior pastor to lead a Soul Revival church plant here at MCC? And so, again, overwhelming majority wanted that to happen. And our Constitution requires that as well. We need the members to absolutely affirm that that's what they want to do.
Yeah.
And so that was the first motion. So that almost felt the easier motion, but again, God's got his ways, right?
Yeah.
But that motion went through. The other motion was probably going to be a little bit trickier, which was, basically saying, well, once Soul Revival's planted at Miranda, what does it look like in a long-term sense? Because again, you guys are part of an organisation that, again, the challenges that Soul Revival's had for 10 years as well. It's not something you can keep throwing resources at without sort of some visibility of what it might look like in the end. So I think the question was then, well, how long could that go for? And we've said, okay, well, up to 5 years that can probably go for. Soul Revival, again, graciously committed, and the Soul Revival members endorsed that as well, that we'll commit to that for 5 years, but we also want to look at what the future direction is for that. And so the second motion is effectively looking at that, which is we need to form a task force to see what the future can look like. I think there's a lot of things happening within the Fellowship of Cong churches that we don't know where that's going to end up as well. So again, they're going through a similar review with city to city on how we can make that fellowship a lot stronger, and how those churches can be sort of built up and made stronger. So we, again, praying into that, what that might look like. But I think at the moment, MCC's feeling that, again, we want to sort of get working on that now. So we'll start a task force to see what it looks like to transition MCC across to a more formal relationship with the Sydney Anglican Church. But lots of hurdles that we'll have to work through, and I don't have the answers for
those
today.
things about property and all that kind of stuff.
That's
but essentially, and I think this is what you're saying, is that your 9:30 service here at Miranda Congregational stays the same, but it becomes a Soul Revival plant in that actual service. Yep.
Yeah, that's right. And the ministries that happen here every other day of the week are Soul Revival ministries as well. So whilst they might have been started by a church that started operating here in, or gathering here in 1895 or whatever it was, some of those ministries we'd love to see continue going on. So, we've been trying to do a little bit more work together. I thought the stuff that happened on the weekend over Easter was really cool. Again, getting together at Swallow Rock as a combined community, that was really cool. We got together at Christmas as well, sort of up at the park at South Village there. They were some cool things as well. So I think, being part of sort of a wider sort of group of churches or group of gatherings, let's say, is something that the MCC people have really enjoyed as well. And hopefully we can sort of continue to learn from some of the stuff that Soul Revival's learned over the last 10, 30 years, using those words as well, but on how we can best reach the community. This is not about, as I say, entertaining us. This is about reaching, the lost and reaching those that don't know Jesus yet. Yeah,
and I think I've been consistently impressed by yourself and the leadership team of how that is the motivating factor behind making what are difficult changes. And I think the continual faithful leadership that you guys are presenting is that's all I end up hearing. not saying that in a bad way. I think that's really what you guys want, and hopefully that achieves those goals that you're saying of revitalising, where you think that MCC used to be, and where you would like to get it to, and it to even further, is for the gospel. That's what I keep hearing. My final question on that is, what are you excited about, and what are you a bit concerned about, like going forwards into the future with this formalising of a relationship with Soul Revival?
Yeah, I think certainly the excitement that comes with it, and again, it's probably going to sound a little bit from Stu's words, but the way that Soul Revival does church is about enjoying church, and he'd use the words having fun at church, and I think sometimes we get ourselves into a point where we're not having fun at church. We're going through the motions. I guess we can do that in our own personal study as well. Like we can, often just go through the motions. I think it's about having an excitement, a thirst for wanting to study the word more. Spread the gospel a bit more, and really enjoying that. So that's the bit that I'm looking forward to doing better. Yeah. Again, continually improving the way we do things, but I think I'm excited to sort of see how Soul Revival's been able to do it, and I'm excited that we can sort of learn from that, and again, as a bigger community, of believers here in the Shire, I'm hoping we can do that, and I'm hoping that sort of spreads through, all age groups as well. Again, MCC at the moment probably has more over 40s, let's say, than under 40s. And I think, if we can sort of become that intergenerational church that Soul Revival's been able to do, I think that's what I'm excited to be able to see here.
Any concerns?
Any concerns? Yeah, it's the stuff we don't know.
So, ambiguity. That you
So again, I think there's a lot of stuff. We're part, or have been part of, the Fellowship of Cong churches since it came into being in 1977. So again, there's a bit of concern about what that might look like. Again, how we continue to support that, but understanding that again, for ministry to be effective here in the future, we're going to have to do things differently. So that's probably the concern at the moment, is how that all plays out.
The unknown, I suppose.
Yeah, and I think at this point in time, we're just praying into that. God will build His church. We're not quite sure what it's going to look like, or when it's going to look like something different. But I think as we gradually sort of change and improve, let's sort of see what he blesses us with.
Again, that's just an example of what I was talking about, like faithfulness of you guys going, well, and you've talked about it before about like letting God do that. Is just like, God's going to do it. Like,
we're awesome at standing in His way, though. I am really good at sort of, and again, it's probably not doing things. So when he's giving you a kick, or when he's talking to you about something,
he's saying, go do this.
I'm really good at not doing something or running the opposite direction. So that's that's my view. But I think that's the big kick that we've sort of had as a community here over the last couple of years is, okay, well, you need to do something. You can't just sit there and hope that it's magically going to happen. And again, notwithstanding, He can make that happen. He can do it despite us, but I do think He's been kicking us into action to say, well, I think you guys can do things differently, and do things a bit better.
Yeah, it almost sounds like sometimes you just maybe saying you fell into a bit of comfort too much sometimes, and you're like, I need this kick up. Like, I feel like kind of your life and what MCC is going through, there's kind of some parallels there of like loving the community and the safety that was there, but also going, hang on, we need to grow and adapt and change, and that's real hard sometimes, but we want to do it, and then we've got to put our faith in God that He's going to take care of it regardless of whatever it is. Yeah,
that's it, and don't, make sure you act upon something. I guess it comes back to that conversation, the conversation that you don't have, or the word that you don't say to someone. Why don't you just have it? See what He can do with that.
I like that. That's cool. Do you have any other questions, Brandon, before we ask the final question?
Oh, well, you've got some merch.
Yes, he does.
We brought props, and so I thought it would be worth addressing.
Craig has, yes.
Craig has brought props, so I thought it would be worth addressing them.
I love Talk us through it.
Well, look, this is a little bit historical. It's probably not as historical as I'd like to remember it because I think it's only yesterday. But Miranda Congregational had a football club, and so again, some of those really great years that that I remember here were part of that football club. And again, if you're sort of running parallel universes, Soul Revival at Gymea and Kirrawee and Miranda Cong down the road, you might have called it Soul Revival Youth Group. We called it Miranda Congregational Football Club because, again, there was a community that would get together on a Saturday afternoon. They'd kick a round ball together. There was parents that would come in and coach the team, that would wash the jerseys each week, that would come in and run the line, come and cheer for us. And then the girlfriends would come and watch us as well, and sort of they'd be part of it. Then kids came along, so there was a lot of cool stuff that I have really fond memories on. Now, again, some of this stuff may have been sitting around for about 10 years or so, but again, they were really cool times. And again, we did some crazy things at evening church as well. We got the soccer team up to sort of run the church service, so it was run footy show style and things like that. Someone reminded me of that on the weekend too. But so that was what the Miranda Congregational Football Club was back in the day.
I really like the club crest here. So MCFC looks like Manchester City Football Club.
It does. Well, see, Manchester City wasn't a thing back then.
Well, they were probably in the second division at that point.
Yeah, that's right.
That's it.
But it's pretty cool. So someone designed that, I'm guessing.
Yeah. So that logo, again, someone can probably correct me, but I think it's probably been around for 30 or 40 years, possibly even actually longer. It'll be longer than that.
That's cool.
But why it's got a two-headed eagle and a cross and a football, I'm not really sure. But
I'm trying to figure out if the eagles were griffins.
I thought they were like dragon kind of thing.
Yeah.
Possibly.
What's a griffin again?
Like beak lion thing. Like, I don't know.
Like
it's because it's got a beak.
Oh, it's like a flying lion or whatever.
Yeah. So it looks like kind of like a griffin or something.
And can you read us?
The double-headed eagle is a bit Bonnie Rig, but that's
it is
different.
What's the you got a Bible?
Yeah, so again, because it's a water bottle, I think that's the only reason that the verse from John 4 is there. But Jesus answered, "Whoever drinks the water I give him will never thirst."
Which I think is the passage we're looking at this week.
Really?
Well, it's the one we looked at in Bible study this week, so it's either this week or next week.
Sweet. Okay. Well, you can use that during. I'm
not preaching.
Oh,
but
okay.
I can pass it on.
I'll have to put it on the.
We should get whoever's preaching should get that. Use that.
Yeah, that's
at least
definitely
on Sunday morning.
Yeah, I wonder who is
here at
preaching at Miranda.
Yeah.
We'll give it to them.
I'll be here at Miranda, so.
Oh, there you go. You can give it to them.
Okay, so that's the there's the merch from the Miranda Congregational
thank you.
Football Club.
It is quality. It is quality.
It is very cool.
Right.
Like someone's gone to that much effort to get specific water bottles.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
We were kitted out. We had sponsors.
Who were you playing against?
Oh, we were playing against some awesome teams. We were part of the New South Wales Churches Football Association.
Okay.
But certainly our friends up at Gymea Baps used to have a team as well. Sutherland, I think they were called Sutherland United, so I guess they were a bunch of churches. Cronulla Uniting, they used to sort of field a team. There's probably others. South Hurstville Uniting, I'm sure, were our nemesis. We had some tough games against them.
Yeah.
I remember some people saying that church comp was like it was pretty brutal. Is that true? Would you describe it as that?
Well, again, I've got no comparisons to draw it with. I've only ever played in the Churches Football Association.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I guess where some of our players had to retire was due to the fact that they had jobs they had to go to on Monday, and they were getting some pretty substantial injuries that meant that things were quite difficult to go to work on Mondays with. Yeah. I think the level of refereeing compared to the Sutherland Shire football competition and the New South Wales Churches football competition, where there's quite a big divide between the different interpretation of the rule book, let's say.
Wow. Okay. I remember talking to a guy. I think it's a dad of one of the players in my daughter's team. He's my age, and he was playing A grade rugby league. on a Sunday afternoon, and he's a tradie. So he had so he's getting beaten up.
Oh,
Massively.
I used to work with a dude who played rep rugby, and he would turn up every Monday with like a black eye.
Black eyes.
It's just like,
it'd be so because it's not just obviously football's still a physical sport, but you're doing a lot of running, but you're not running directly into people.
No.
Like, imagine how sore you would be. A grade, like even though it's only at Shire level, A grade rugby league, and then you're like, now I've got to go play. And I was like, I don't know how you back up, mate. And he's like, they eventually moved it back to Saturday. So we had some time.
Well, no, we used to play Saturday afternoons, so that's sort of again, I think the Churches Football Association chose that so that you could go to church on Sundays. Look, when it comes to the interpretation of the rule book, let me use that terminology, but there is a certain Soul Revival Church member who won't be named on this podcast that is the only player I've known to be sent off from the sideline. Does mean on the field that there were really bad tackles that used to go unpunished, and people would walk off with broken legs, or not walk off with broken legs, should I say, get carried off with broken legs and not be punished. But this particular person ended up getting carded on the sideline for expressing again a few emotions that potentially should not have been done. But,
we'll have to find out after the podcast who that is. Did you have a final question?
I was just wondering what position you played before we moved on to final.
Oh, well, look,
let's have a guess. Let's guess. You guess.
Midfield?
I reckon right back.
I'm not that fit. Yeah, and that was left back. Left foot.
Are you left-footed?
No, but I was terrible. So it was the position that I could be isolated in over on the side there, and you'd be closer to the sideline as well to get off quickly. You know, when they needed to swap me out. No, look again. I really enjoyed playing football, but I don't think I was the world's greatest footballer out there. But certainly, had a lot of fun. Doing it. Again, we formed some great relationships in that time as well. Again, at left back, you'd assume I didn't score too many goals, which was right. Did a couple of home goals though.
A couple of home goals.
So, that's sort of how my footballing career.
I think I've only scored one own goal in my time.
0, but I do play up front, so I generally am not back there to do it.
All right, man. I think I was playing in midfield, but it was like off a corner, and
it's always a corner.
I went to hit it, and it came off the outside, and my boot went in. Oh, no, that was bad. It's probably under 10. No, probably like under 12s or something like that. Anyway, final question. Looking back over your life, and we've talked about many, many things, what would you like to tell your younger Christian self that you know now?
Yeah, again, it's one of those challenging questions as you've lived a pretty protected life here in the Shire that hasn't changed too much and things like that. So, again, having to reflect on what I would tell my younger self. I think every day I'm learning. So I want to tell the guy yesterday as well what I've learned today. And again, it popped up on YouVersion in the last week as we've been sort of just seeing the verses about putting on the full armour of God.
I have seen
that was yesterday.
Was it yesterday?
Yeah. And I think that's what reminded me of it, which is I think every day, and perhaps I can apply that analogy to marriage as well. You want to get up every day and want to be married. You want to get up every day and want to follow Christ. You want to get up every day and put on that full armour of God in order to sort of get through life. Life's tough. Yeah. Life's really tough. And again, I'm saying this from a guy that's lived a pretty protected, and I'd say privileged life here in the Shire. I haven't had to go too often out of my comfort zone. But life is tough. So I think being able to get up every morning, put on that full armour of God, that gets you through those tough days when they come. And as I say, I'm not denying that I've probably not had too many tough days. I think I've moved this age from about 20 to 40. It's probably closer to 50. But anyway, in all my days. So every day get up and put on the armour of God.
It's a good reminder, hey, to just wake up and putting on the armour. Here we go.
I'm preaching on that tonight.
Are you?
On Ephesians 6. Yeah. Looking forward to it.
Any little snippets you want to give us?
No, but it's a great passage.
No.
But come along to Soul Revival.
Come along to the Friday night gathering.
You'll be a week
was
late.
ago.
But yeah, it's a great. I love Ephesians. It's excellent.
Yeah, what a great letter that is. Yeah, I think that's really cool, and I think it's a good reminder for all of us. I mean, yeah, I read that on the YouVersion little snippet on my phone as well. I'm like, oh yeah, it's like you can put on the armor. That's the other thing, is that because of Jesus, we can put on the armor of God. I think that's the other thing, and I think, I mean, even across this episode, we've talked about how sometimes you found it hard to relinquish control. You found it hard to get out of your comfort zone. That's two things that I've picked up on, and I think sometimes you may have, or other people say that and they talk about in a negative light, but I think, to be honest, to be able to actually share that is actually really special, and to show that God is actually changing you, because you or anyone else has realised that God's highlighting this thing in your life and saying, hey, I want to change you, I want to sanctify you, I'm going to help you do it. Put on the armour of God, because Jesus has done it all, and I'm going to help you do this. And I think, even talking about the coming together with Soul Revival and MCC, that's obvious. I think just from your story that you've told us. I mean, you've been faithful for a very, very long time, and God's always changing us. But I think in all the things that you've told us today, I think that's obvious that God has been changing you, and I think that's again the beauty of this podcast, is we're hearing how God's changing people over many. You've made jokes about your age, but there's a beauty to having a lot more experience in that stuff too. And I think, as being part of the leadership team on NCC, you've definitely done that, and really asked God to go, hey, lead us in this, and then as a result, shown leadership. And although you don't want to be the one out the front, you want to be leading through example and helping out as a team. So I really appreciate you coming on, and it's been really encouraging having you on to tell us all those things.
Yeah. And I think I'm the product of probably multiple sort of people that have spoken into my life, and likewise over generations of people gathering, under God in this area as well. I think again that's the good thing. And I guess, it's not until we get to heaven that we're going to hear good and faithful servant or not. And certainly my encouragement or the thing is, I say, put on the armour of God every day. I think that's got to continue every single day of your life. I don't think you can wake up and think the job's done. It's not done. And so I don't know, hopefully, perhaps I get to an old age, much older age than now. But every day getting up and putting on that full armour, what can I do different? How can I do better, God? And again, it's not in a negative way, but how can we do this better? And so, looking forward to continuing to do that. We're certainly, whatever we're doing here with Soul Revival at MCC at the moment, I think the work is underway. I think God's working in us at the moment, working in the people here.
I agree.
And again, I'm really, really excited about where this is going to go. I think He's got this, and really looking forward to seeing where we get to over the next few months, next few years, next few decades. It's going to be really cool.
Yeah, amazing. Take us home, Braden. Land the plane for us. Doing that travel. Yeah,
I think that is the really exciting thing that I'm thinking about especially after this conversation, but I have been over the last couple of weeks, is just making this long term. I'm like, oh man, I've enjoyed getting to do church with you guys for a little while, and I think the exciting thing now is like, it'll be fun to get to do church for a little bit longer, and just see what God does. Like, 3% of people in the Shire go to church, 1% go to Anglican churches, even less than that actually, which is just like cool. Like, we got 97% of people that don't go to church regularly. Like, it's pretty exciting to be in an area. I think, like where we are at Kirrawee, it's Soul Revival Brick Pit appeared. Like South Village, appeared partway through, and I feel like you guys are in a similar spot where you've got all these units and houses and Miranda Fair and everything around. You've just got thousands of people who walk and drive past every single day who don't know Jesus, and I think it's a really exciting spot to be in. And I think I've really enjoyed getting to hang out with everyone at MCC, but also chat with yourself and hang out and have a good time. And I think the exciting thing now is like, well, we get to keep doing that. That's something really fun. I've been greatly encouraged by just the gospel-heartedness that's been on display and the thoughtfulness. And I'd also quickly like to acknowledge the I think it was said at a council meeting this week, the just insane amount of hours that your church leadership and our wardens put into chatting through this and figuring that out and having thoughtful conversations and meeting with Anthony Douglas and the FCC as well. You've put an insane amount of effort in, and it's greatly encouraged and appreciated. And I think the more encouraging thing is that you're doing it for the gospel and because you have a personal relationship with Jesus and because you want to see this area grow and spread and share the kingdom with. And I think that's what I've been really encouraged with over the last couple of months, and I'm just excited to get to hang out more. It's pretty cool, isn't it? Again, it's just a glimpse of we'll be hanging out in heaven, but it's pretty fun to get to know that for the next little bit we'll be hanging out for a while, which is pretty cool.
There's no denominations in heaven, so
exactly.
I hope that we can sort of see a little bit of that going on here, a little bit of a bit more working together.
Yeah,
and again, I'll let you guys do another podcast on denominations and why we started breaking things down. But
that can be a different one.
Yeah,
yeah. I remember when we first started talking about what was happening with Miranda, my initial reaction, and even it was a bit visceral, was like, oh no, there's something that's going to change for me. And obviously that's a selfish perspective, but there's over time, and very similar to what Braden said. And it's like, oh, now this is exciting. It's just another opportunity to grow the gospel. So I think it's really cool.
Yeah, 6 to 8 months ago, we had no idea any of this would happen. It's pretty fun to just get to see what God's going to do. And
listening to you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
it's exciting.
Well, it's been a pleasure, Brad. Thank you for landing that plane. Great landing. Good job.
Oh, thank you.
Greased it, as they like to say. Good job.
Let's plainly go.
Yeah. And Craig, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
It's been really fun. But again, this is why we do this podcast. Is a new person in our lives. We get to hear about their journey as a Christian and learn more from them and have fun together. So thank you very much. And we'll continue to do that as Soul Revival is part of, it's MCC is part of Soul Revival. So
Yeah, sweet.
thank you very much. We always like to finish with a one way though, so let's do that, and everyone can switch to a different podcast after this. Thanks guys. One way.
One way.